I always remember knowing that I was adopted. I never didn't know. So when I grew up, I just knew it. We didn't talk about it much, but I knew I was a wanted child.
I was in my early teens when I started to become interested in where Grandma came from.
When I could get into the lockbox that my dad had, I found the adoption papers, and I didn't ever bring it up to my parents because I thought it would hurt their feelings. My aunt and I, who is 2 weeks younger than I am, wanted to go to the Galapagos Islands to see the green turtles. That required a passport, and in order to get a passport, you had to have a birth certificate. Well, I've never had a birth certificate even when I entered nurses training or college or anything. So I went to get a birth certificate, and no, I didn't have one. They wouldn't give me one. I didn't get to go to the Galapagos Islands, but I sure started looking for a birth certificate. I hired this private investigator, and he worked out of his home, and he wasn't too expensive, and he sort of looked into it, but we had the wrong name. We were looking under Deborah Howard, and so that lead went nowhere. I had always said that I was born in Evanston because that's where the cradle is, and that's where I was adopted from. I really didn't know until a cousin of Tom's looked into it, and I found out I was born in Chicago. I had called the Salvation Army. I gave them my birth date, and they said, well, there were 4 babies born that day, and I can give you the 4 mothers and how old they were. Well, I did know that my mother was an older mother. It was a process of elimination, and I figured out that I was Violet May Avers.
When Grandma was admitted to the cradle, she was given her second name, Deborah Howard, because her mother's married name was Howard, and even though her mother's husband was not her biological father, in those days the law said that he was legally her father anyway.
When I was adopted, it was Barbara Marie Hinckley. My husband has a cousin who's very interested in genealogy. Then one day she called me and she said, you know, I think you've got a sister living. And she said, I've got her telephone number. I did call her, which was a very difficult phone call to make. You know, what are you going to do? Say, hi, I'm your sister. You never knew about me. I was adopted. But I did start out telling her my name, where I lived, and a little bit of background that I had been adopted from the cradle, and I had every reason to believe that perhaps she might be my half-sister. And she answered, oh, that explains a lot of things. And she said, my mother went away for a whole year in 1930, which was my birth year, and we stayed with my grandparents. And we never knew where she was, what happened. And she said, and I think maybe my sister has some papers that you might be interested in. So it wasn't a real big surprise to her, although she had never tried to find me. Then she said, well, you know, there are 2 others. And I said, no. She said, there are 2 other girls that were born after you were born. So that really, you know, here's 3 half-sisters I never knew I had. And so I did meet with them in California, and it was rather strained, but it was good to know who my mother was, but I still didn't know who my father was. And we still really don't know for sure. I think DNA would have to be made on the half sisters that I have in myself to find out if we are full sisters. So I'm sort of holding that in reserve. It's always a little piece of me that wasn't completed, and this has completed it. Now I know who I am, what I am, where I came from. I'm still who I've always been. It was enlightening, it was good to know, and it completed me, but no, I'm still the same person as I was.